locked on the ship. There was no movement, no sign of life except for their intense gaze. It was as if they were waiting for something, or someone.
"Let's not make any sudden moves," John said. "Prepare for a recon mission."
"We'll send a small team to investigate." The crew suited up and readied themselves for the mission.
John, Sarah, and 2 other crew members, Michael and Emma, would be the first to set foot on the planet. As they descended the ramp, the ground beneath their boots felt unnaturally soft, as if the soil itself had been waiting for them. The air was dry and cold, biting at their skin. The atmosphere was thin, but breathable. A relief after months of ship air. As they walked towards the group of alien figures, the silence was deafening. The wind barely stirred, and the only sound was the crunch of their boots against the soil. The closer they got, the more they could see of the alien beings. They were tall, towering over the humans by at least a foot, and their skin shimmered in the dim light, an iridescent sheen that gave them an almost ethereal quality. John's heart was pounding in his chest as they approached. He had seen his fair share of alien species, but these beings were unlike anything he had encountered before. They stood perfectly still, unmoving, their eyes following every step the humans took. At the center of the group was a woman, the tallest of them all. She was striking, her features sharp and regal, her posture one of command and power. Her eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and her presence seemed to fill the space around her, making the air feel thick with anticipation. John couldn't help but stare at her. There was something magnetic about her, something that made him want to step closer, to understand her, even though a voice in the back of his mind told him to be careful. He didn't know why, but he felt like he was being tested, as if the alien woman was sizing him up, trying to determine whether he was a threat or something more. The moment stretched on, the silence between them growing heavier with each passing second. Finally, John took a deep breath and stepped forward, extending his hand in a gesture of peace. "We come in peace," he said, his voice steady but filled with tension. "We mean no harm." The alien woman's eyes flicked to his hand, and for a moment everything seemed to stop. It was as if time itself had paused, waiting for her reaction. John held his breath, his hand still extended, unsure of what would happen next. Then, to his shock, the woman moved. She stepped forward, her movements fluid and graceful, like a predator stalking its prey. The rest of her companions remained still, watching silently. The woman's gaze never left John's face as she reached out, her hand brushing lightly against his own. John froze. The touch was electric, sending a shockwave through his body. It was as if he could feel the power that radiated from her, the immense strength hidden beneath the surface of her seemingly delicate form. Her skin was smooth, warm, and unlike anything he had ever felt before. For a moment, neither of them moved. The crew stood behind John, unsure of what to do, their eyes wide with fear and awe. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the woman pulled away, her eyes never leaving John's. There was no smile, no sign of warmth, only a cold, calculating look that sent a chill down his spine.
"You are lucky," she said in a low, melodic voice that sent shivers through the air. "You have touched me."
Few live to tell of it. John's heart skipped a beat. He had no idea what she meant by that. But one thing was clear. He had crossed a line that he hadn't even known existed. The rest of the crew stood motionless, too afraid to speak, too afraid to make a move.
"I'm not sure what you want from us," John said, trying to keep his voice steady.
"We didn't come here to cause trouble." The woman's gaze softened slightly, but only for a moment.
"You will leave now," she said simply, her voice carrying an unspoken command.
"Go back to your ship." John hesitated. He had expected many things from this encounter, but not this unexpected mercy. He had touched the most dangerous being he had ever encountered, and yet she had let him live. He wasn't sure if it was a sign of respect, a test, or something more sinister. But for now, he knew better than to question it. "We will go," he said, nodding to his crew. They slowly began to back away, their eyes still locked on the woman and her companions. As they retreated towards the ship, John's mind raced. What had just happened? Why had she spared him? What did it all mean? As the crew boarded the ship and began to lift off, the woman and her group remained standing in the distance, watching silently. John couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was only the beginning, that they had stepped into something far larger than they could ever understand. And somewhere, deep inside him, he felt an unsettling certainty. The alien woman had let him live for a reason.
The days after the encounter weighed heavily on Captain John Hayes.
As the ship left the barren world behind, soaring into the black void of space, the crew settled back into their routines. But the air was thick with questions. None of them could stop thinking about what had happened on the surface of that alien planet. John sat alone in his quarters, staring out of the small porthole. The stars seemed so distant, almost unreachable. He couldn't get the image of the alien woman out of his mind. Her eyes, glowing with an unspoken power, the electric charge when she had touched him. Everything about her felt like a warning that was not meant to be ignored. The ship's systems hummed softly around him, the only sound in the otherwise quiet room. It was the middle of the night, if the time aboard the ship could even be measured that way. In the silence, John couldn't help but replay the moment over and over in his mind. The touch, the words, the command to leave. It made no sense, yet everything felt like it was leading up to something far more significant than any of them realized. "Captain!" The voice of Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell echoed through the door, pulling John from his thoughts. He sighed and stood up to open it, already knowing what she wanted.
Come in,
he called. Sarah stepped inside, her expression unreadable. She was one of the best officers John had ever worked with, sharp, reliable, and more than capable in any situation. But now she seemed as uncertain as everyone else. The encounter had rattled her, just as it had rattled him.
How are you holding up?
Sarah asked, closing the door behind her. John sank into the chair beside his desk and ran a hand through his hair. "I'm not sure," he admitted.
"I don't know what to make of it," she nodded, sitting across from him. "None of us do."
"That woman, she's not like anything we've encountered. Her power, the way she just let you live."
It's unsettling. Exactly, John said.
It doesn't add up. Why let me live?
I touched her, violated whatever boundary she had, and she just let me go, like it was nothing.
I've been running over it in my head,
Sarah said, her brow furrowing. We've all heard stories about this species. They're known for being violent, merciless even.
They don't tolerate outsiders. But she didn't kill you.
"I don't understand it." "Neither do I," John replied quietly, staring out at the stars again.
But it feels like there's more to it. She spared me for a reason, and I think we're going to find out exactly what that reason is.
I don't think she's done with us yet. The silence stretched between them as both pondered the implications of what they had just discussed.
Sarah, ever practical, was the first to break it.
Captain, do you think she'll come after us?
What do we do next? Should we head back to the station, report this to command?
John shook his head slowly.
No, I don't think we should report this yet. We don't even fully understand what happened, and we don't have any proof.
Besides, something tells me that if we try to leave, she'll find us anyway. Sarah hesitated before speaking again.
What do you mean? I mean that I have a feeling she's watching us, John said, turning to look at her. Not in a threatening way, at least not yet.
But she's aware of us, Sarah? I think we've just become a part of something much bigger.
The words hung heavy in the air, each one carrying a weight neither of them was prepared to carry. Sarah's eyes narrowed in thought, but she didn't question him. John wasn't the type to make idle predictions. When he spoke with that kind of certainty, it usually meant something more was coming.
We can't ignore this, John continued, his voice now firm. The next move has to be ours. We'll stay on course, continue with the mission, but we'll do it carefully. I don't trust this situation, and I don't think we're alone out here. If the alien woman wants something, we need to be prepared for it.
Sarah nodded, clearly still unsure, but willing to follow John's lead.
Understood, Captain.
She left the room after a moment, but John's mind remained focused on the strange woman and her cryptic message. What did she want? What was the purpose of their encounter? He felt an inexplicable pull toward her, something he couldn't quite explain. It was as though her very existence had left an imprint on his mind, something he couldn't shake. Days passed, and life aboard the ship continued with the same routines, but a growing tension was palpable. The crew went about their work with quiet unease, each person wondering the same thing. Was the alien woman's mercy a sign of something more? Or was it a dangerous game, one they hadn't yet figured out? It wasn't until a week later that they received a transmission, one that was encrypted in a way they had never seen before. The captain's heart skipped a beat when he saw the message's origin, the same planet they had just left, but there was no sign of the alien woman. Instead, the message was from an unknown source, but it carried the unmistakable weight of urgency. "Captain Hayes," the voice on the screen said, a deep, gravelly tone. "You've attracted the attention of something far more dangerous than you realize. Turn around and leave this system. If you don't, you will regret it." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving behind nothing but static. John's mind raced, his thoughts spinning faster than he could catch up with. That message. Was it a warning? A threat?
"Sarah,"
he called out, standing quickly from his chair and heading for the comms room.
"Get in here, now." "What's going on, Captain?" John replayed the transmission for her, and as soon as the warning ended, he turned to her, his face grim. "What do you think?"
"Is this connected to her?" "It has to be," Sarah said, her eyes wide with disbelief. "It's from the planet. She must have known about the warning."
That woman, she has more power than we thought.
"Exactly," John muttered, running his fingers through his hair. "She's been watching us, and now someone else is involved. Someone who doesn't want us to be here. I think we've stepped into something far deeper than we anticipated."
"We can't ignore this," Sarah said, her voice tense. "Whatever's happening, we have to figure it out."
"We can't just run."
I agree, but we need to be careful.
"The situation's evolving faster than we can keep up. I don't know who's watching us now, but we've made ourselves targets." The captain didn't like the idea of running, especially when the unknown was already making its move. But he also didn't know how to confront whatever was lurking in the shadows. Something more dangerous than the alien woman had taken notice of their presence, and it was clear they were no longer in control of the situation.
"Set a course for the planet," John said, his voice unwavering. "We need answers. And if the alien woman is somehow involved, we'll find out what she really wants."
As the ship made its way back toward the planet, John couldn't shake the feeling that they were being drawn into a trap. But there was no turning back now. The truth awaited them, and it was something that would change everything. The journey back to the alien planet was filled with tense silence. The crew went about their tasks, but there was no disguising the anxiety that hung over them. Captain John Hayes couldn't stop thinking about the warning they had received, the unknown voice, the threat to leave the system. Everything felt like a dangerous game unfolding around them. John sat alone in the command room, his eyes fixed on the stars outside the window. They were so far from home, and yet it felt as if they were standing on the edge of something much larger. The alien woman, the message, the power she held. It all seemed connected. But how? Why had she spared him?
What was her role in all of this?
"Captain." Sarah Mitchell's voice broke his thoughts, and he turned to see her standing at the door, her expression cautious.
"Yes, Lieutenant," John said, sitting up straighter. "We're approaching the planet."
"We're on course," she reported. Are we sure we want to do this?
We still don't know what we're walking into. John looked at her, his mind filled with conflicting thoughts.
She was right to be concerned. They didn't know what they were dealing with. But there was no turning back now. They had made contact with something far bigger than they had realized, and the alien woman was somehow at the center of it. We don't have a choice, Sarah, he said. We need answers.
If this woman is involved, we need to understand why. We need to know if we're in danger, or if she's testing us for something. We're too deep in this now to just walk away.
Sarah nodded slowly.
I'll prepare the crew. We'll need to be ready for anything.
As she left, John stood and moved to the navigation console. The planet loomed ahead, its surface visible through the window. The barren landscape stretched out in every direction, silent and ominous. They had made contact once, and now they would return to confront whatever awaited them. The ship touched down on the same desolate ground they had left just days before. The landing was smooth, but there was a strange unease in the air as the crew stepped out of the ship. The planet felt different now. It wasn't just a barren world. It was a place filled with secrets, with powers that none of them could fully comprehend. John led the way, with Sarah and the rest of the crew following close behind. As they walked toward the same spot where they had encountered the alien woman, a feeling of tension gripped John's chest. It was as if something was waiting for them, watching from the shadows. And then they saw them, the same figures they had encountered before, standing motionless in the distance. This time, however, there was a difference. The alien woman was among them, her presence even more commanding than before. Her eyes, glowing with that strange inner light, locked onto John as he approached. The others around her remained silent, still. John took a deep breath and stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew they couldn't avoid this moment any longer. The time for questions had arrived. The alien woman's eyes never left him as he approached. There was no hostility in her gaze, but it was full of something else. Curiosity, perhaps, or something far more dangerous. She was studying him, measuring him in a way that made him feel small. "Captain Hayes," she spoke, her voice low and melodic, but with an unmistakable authority. "You have returned. I did not expect this." John hesitated for a moment, but then he met her gaze.
We received a warning. Someone doesn't want us here.
What is going on? Why are we being watched? The alien woman studied him for a long moment before she spoke again. You have touched something far greater than yourself, and now you are caught between worlds.
Your presence here is not an accident, Captain Hayes. John felt a chill run through him.
What does that mean? She stepped forward, her movements graceful and commanding. I spared your life because I saw potential in you.
I did not expect you to return, but now you have made a choice. You are no longer simply an observer.
You are part of a larger plan.
John felt the weight settle on his shoulders as her words echoed in his mind. He had hoped for answers, but this was more than he had expected. What plan? He asked, his voice steady but filled with uncertainty. The woman did not immediately answer. Instead, she turned her gaze toward the horizon, her expression distant. There are forces at work, Captain. Forces that seek to control, to dominate, and there are those who fight against them. The balance is delicate, and your arrival here has shifted it.
You have touched something ancient, and now you must decide where you stand.
John felt his pulse quicken.
What do you want from us?
From me? You are not alone in this, Captain, she replied, her voice softer now, but no less intense.
There are those who wish to see you fail, to see your mission crumble. But you have a choice.
You can turn away, leave this place and forget all that has happened. Or you can embrace the power you've touched and join us.
Stand with us against those who would see the galaxy ruled by fear.
John looked at her, trying to process what she was saying.
Power? Join them? He didn't know what to believe, but one thing was clear. They had stumbled into something far beyond their understanding. The alien woman was offering them a choice, but it wasn't a simple one. What happens if we refuse? John asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The alien woman's expression darkened, and for the first time, John saw a flicker of something dangerous in her eyes. If you refuse, you will become enemies of those who seek control. You will face the consequences of your choices, and there will be no turning back. John's mind raced. It was clear they had no idea what they were truly dealing with. They were being drawn into a larger conflict, one that was far more dangerous than anything they had faced before. But the alternative, the consequences of refusing, seemed equally bleak.
We don't have all the information, Sarah said, her voice tense. She had joined them at the front, her eyes narrowing as she watched the alien woman. How do we know we can trust you? The alien woman turned her gaze to Sarah, her expression unreadable. Trust is earned, Lieutenant Mitchell. But you will learn that the stakes are higher than you realize. John turned to Sarah, his thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and uncertainty. He had no idea what to do next. But one thing was clear. The alien woman and the forces she spoke of were real, and they were not going to let him, or his crew, simply walk away from this. We need to think carefully, John said, his voice calm but filled with resolve. We've come this far, and now we have to make a choice. Whatever happens next, we need to be ready. The alien woman nodded, her gaze never leaving them. Your choice will shape the future of this galaxy, Captain Hayes. Choose wisely. With that, she turned and began to walk away, her companions following in silence. John watched them go, feeling the weight of their words pressing down on him. This was no longer just about survival. It was about something far larger, something that could change the course of history. As the crew watched the alien woman disappear into the distance, John couldn't shake the feeling that they had just crossed a line. They had stepped into a conflict far beyond their comprehension, and there was no way to turn back now. The choice they made next would determine not only their own fates, but the fate of the galaxy itself. The days after the meeting with the alien woman felt like they were moving in slow motion. The crew of the ship went about their tasks, but the weight of the choice they had to make hung over them like a dark cloud. John Hayes couldn't escape the feeling that they were in over their heads. The warning, the offer, the unspoken threats. It was all too much to process. John spent his nights staring at the stars, trying to make sense of it all. The galaxy was vast, full of mysteries and dangers they had only begun to understand. But now, they were a part of something much bigger. He wasn't sure if they had a chance to walk away from it. Captain, Sarah Mitchell's voice broke through his thoughts. We need to make a decision. John stood up from his desk, his eyes meeting Sarah's. She had been the most practical member of the crew, but even she seemed rattled by the events of the past few days.
I know, he said quietly. We can't keep going in circles. The alien woman gave us an ultimatum.
Either we join her cause, or we become enemies of those who want control.
What do we do? Sarah shook her head, frustration in her eyes. I don't know, Captain. How can we trust her? What if she's using us for her own agenda? But what if she's right? What if the people who want control are worse? John didn't have the answers. He had thought about it nonstop, trying to see all the angles, but it was hard to make a clear decision when there were so many unknowns. His crew trusted him to lead, but this time, even he wasn't sure what the right choice was. The sound of footsteps interrupted the moment. Michael and Emma, two other members of the crew, entered the room, their faces tight with worry. They had been quiet since the meeting, clearly unsure of what to make of the alien woman's words. What's the word, Captain? Michael asked, his voice low. What do we do next?
John sighed and ran a hand through his hair. We need to decide if we're going to take the alien woman's offer or walk away from it all.
But there's no easy choice, Emma spoke up, her voice trembling slightly.
But what if refusing means we'll be hunted?
What if we're not ready for the consequences of turning our backs on this?
John met her gaze, seeing the fear in her eyes. It was the same fear he felt. He wasn't sure what would happen if they refused. Would they be dragged into a war they couldn't win?
Would they be destroyed? The uncertainty gnawed at him.
We can't ignore the fact that this galaxy is full of forces we don't understand, he said, his voice steady. We've made ourselves part of this. We've touched something that's much larger than we are, and now we have to face it. But how? Sarah asked. We don't have the resources. We don't know enough about the other side. John looked out the window, staring into the vastness of space.
We take a chance. We trust that we're doing the right thing.
The room fell silent. It was clear no one had all the answers. They were standing at the edge of something dangerous, and the unknown was staring back at them.
We don't have time to think forever,
John said, finally.
We've made contact. We've learned enough to know that something important is happening. But we can't stand still. We have to choose a side.
Sarah nodded slowly.
I agree, Captain.
We can't keep running. We have to stand for something. John turned to the comms panel, making a decision in that moment. He couldn't leave his crew in the dark, and he couldn't let fear guide his choices.
Set a course back to the planet, he ordered. We'll meet the alien woman again.
But this time, we make our decision. The crew worked quickly, preparing the ship for the final trip. The tension in the air was thick, but there was also a sense of resolve. They were heading back into the unknown, but they were ready to face whatever came next. The ship descended back onto the alien world, and as they landed, John could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him. The barren landscape stretched out before them, the same as it had been before. But now, everything felt different. They had made their choice, and it was time to face the consequences. John and the crew exited the ship, walking toward the spot where they had first encountered the alien woman. The figures were there again, standing motionless, waiting. And there she was, just as commanding as before, her eyes locking onto John's as he approached. You return, she said, her voice carrying a note of surprise.
I did not expect you to choose this path.
John stepped forward, his resolve firm. We've made our choice, he said, meeting her gaze.
We'll join you, but we need to know what we're fighting for.
The alien woman studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. You have chosen wisely. The fight you face is not an easy one, but you have touched the power that many seek. That power will guide you if you allow it. John's heart pounded in his chest. It was like the weight of the galaxy itself had settled on his shoulders. But for the first time since this all began, he felt a sense of clarity. They weren't just survivors in a dangerous galaxy. They were part of something far larger, a force that could change the fate of the universe. Tell us what we need to do, John said. The alien woman nodded. There is much to learn, but we do not have time. The forces you face are already moving.
They will stop at nothing to claim what they believe is theirs. You must stand with us, or you will be consumed.
John's mind raced. What do we fight against?
Who are these forces? The ones who seek control, the alien woman replied. The ones who believe the galaxy should be ruled by force, by fear. They are many, and they are powerful. But they are not invincible.
You will stand with us, and together we will challenge them.
John nodded, a sense of determination filling him. They had no idea what they were about to face, but they were in this together. They were part of something bigger now.
The choice is made, he said. We'll stand with you.
The alien woman's gaze softened slightly, but only for a moment.
You have made the right choice. But be warned, there will be no turning back.
The crew stood in silence, understanding the weight of the decision they had just made. There was no going back. They were now part of a larger war, one that would take them to the edges of the galaxy.